Hey everyone, Jay Whitner here with Space Headlines. We do a quick recap of what's going on in the space universe, and today we're going to be talking about the second week of February of 2018. Our first story is SpaceX. In our last broadcast, we talked about the booster that had not been expected to survive a landing test in the Atlantic miraculously survived, and they were talking about trying to recover the booster for study. On reflection, it seemed like it was a very dangerous thing to try to do. And then there were a lot of rumors about what they were going to do, including U.S. Air Force airstrikes and things. In the final analysis, what they did is they hired a commercial demolition company to basically scuttle the Falcon 9 booster, which I guess now is peacefully on the floor of the Atlantic Ocean, and all that is resolved. But quite a bit of excitement. SpaceX has been in the news even more than usual lately with the huge success of the Falcon Heavy recently. And a big question on everybody's mind is, okay, well, what are they going to do next? Well, the answer is all kinds of things. Elon Musk is a dynamo with lots of projects going on all the time. In my view, what the big follow-on is to the Falcon Heavy launch is commercial crew. To me, that's more significant in the short term than the internet satellite constellation, and the BFR is a longer term situation. Commercial crew should be happening this year, both a test flight without a crew on it and later on a test flight with a crew. So it's still planned, I think, for December for them to launch people on the Dragon 2. And by the time that happens, it'll have been 7.5 years since the last time U.S. astronauts flew into space on a U.S. launch vehicle, which has been a long time coming. So something to look forward to as a Christmas present for everyone. Apparently, all this excitement about big rockets has gotten Vladimir Putin excited. He's maybe inspired by the Falcon Heavy. He wants Russia to build a big rocket. Certainly, they have a tradition of building big rockets in Russia. They're looking at doing lots of heavy development for a very big rocket that would launch roughly 10 years from now in 2028. What they are hoping for is to develop a vehicle that could put 90 tons into low Earth orbit or send 20 tons into lunar orbit. So this is really big numbers, and I guess a rival to Falcon Heavy and New Glenn and to SLS. We'll have to see if they have the determination and the capital to pursue this. So SpaceX for a while has been talking about launching people on the Falcon Heavy, basically putting a Dragon capsule on top of the Falcon Heavy. And what they're saying now is they don't think they're going to do that. They think that crewed flights of the Dragon will be on the Falcon 9, and looking downstream, human flights would be on their BFR. So they're talking about not doing human lives on the Falcon Heavy. And basically, it's partly because they're confident about the BFR. It seems to be going early, good progress in the early development stage. So they don't think they're going to need to put people on the Falcon Heavy. However, they're also saying that if they get some surprises on the BFR and the development moves substantially to the right, they may revisit this whole thing and put people on the Falcon Heavy. Good news for the people at Sierra Nevada. The Dream Chaser vehicle, which they've been pursuing for a very, very long time, has been cleared for cargo flights to the ISS starting in late 2020. So you can see the Dream Chaser depicted here. It's going to launch on an Atlas V rocket. It's the 552 model that has a 5-meter fairing that's big enough to wrap around the Dream Chaser. It'd have 5 solid rocket boosters and use a Centaur upper stage. there's a lot of great possibilities by the Dream Chaser. Obviously, diversity of having a stable of different vehicles is always good, but more particularly, winged vehicles have an ability to bring back samples from space with lower G loads than capsules do. So this might be the ideal vehicle to bring back really sensitive experimental results for future testing on the planet here. So we'll see how that all goes, but congrats to Dream Chaser. And 2020, it sounds far, but really it's not that far away. The NASA budget. The White House budget for NASA has been unveiled, and of course it depends on what the Congress decides to do as well. But the White House budget continues SLS and Orion. It provides some seed money for the Deep Space Gateway, which is the lunar outpost in orbit in the lunar vicinity. And it eliminates the WFIRST Space Telescope. The WFIRST, if you're not familiar, is first there was Hubble, then there's James Webb, and WFIRST was going to follow after the James Webb Space Telescope. So they're going to repurpose the money for WFIRST to other areas. In aggregate, the budget is $19.9 billion is what they're talking about. It has plans for human exploration of the moon, are part of the idea. And Acting Administrator Lightfoot is talking about, a series of lunar landers and seed money to prepare for a commercial space station in our future. And unfortunately, they're talking about zeroing out education. Hopefully, Congress will rescue these education funds, which I think is exactly what happened last time. It got zeroed out and Congress put it back in. So as wonderful as the Falcon Heavy flight was and such a big success, there was one issue, and the issue was the core booster did not successfully land on the drone ship. And Elon Musk has come out and discussed, what the issue was that caused the inability to land the core on the drone ship. And early reports had said that it ran out of fuel. What Mr. Musk is saying now is it wasn't actually a shortage of fuel, it was a shortage of ignition fluid. And the repair of this is pretty simple. Make sure we have more ignition fluid loaded in so that there's enough to light the engines on the core stage the appropriate number of times needed to land on the drone ship. Also, in some of these same communications, he talked about a new ship, a seagoing ship that SpaceX was building with metal arms to catch the payload fairings coming down from space for reuse. The fairings, it's amazing how much all this stuff costs, but the fairing costs like $5 million just for the fairing. So they're going to try to start recovering the fairings, reusing the fairings, and there's a dedicated ship apparently to do this. More SpaceX news. You're probably familiar that SpaceX wants to build a very large internet satellite constellation to provide internet to everybody in the world with a low latency to democratize the internet even more. The news is they got a big thumbs up from the head of the FCC. He basically has endorsed what they're trying to do, which I find kind of interesting, since the FCC has not formally finalized all their applications. But the head of the FCC has given them a thumbs up. The details are that SpaceX plans 2 constellations at different orbits to do all this. And I hope you all are sitting down, but the total number of satellites involved is 11,000 plus. This is the Starlink is what they're calling it. And they're planning to launch 2 test satellites in mid-February to start taking the next steps to actually building the constellation. Hopefully the tests will go well. And I think that they're just saying mid-February. I don't know that they've picked a certain date yet. That's it for Space Headlines covering the second week of February. Hope you enjoyed our show. Check back in a week or so, and we'll be talking about week number 3. We'll see you then.